Hello everyone, welcome back to the Zach F1 channel. We have another episode for your F1 Fantasies teams, any tips and tricks that you need to know going into the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. So first of all, last weekend was a pretty good weekend for me. I've moved now up to 1,708th place in the global leagues. Very happy with that, but my goal this season is to try to get a top 1,000 finish. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but hey, we'll see what happens. But anyway, if you like what you see, like and subscribe, follow my Twitter, join my Discord for more F1 Fantasy content, join my F1 Fantasy League as well, as it will be closing at the end of this week. And hey, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you will enjoy. So the first thing I want to talk about is actually how important the constructor battle is right now. So for the last few races, we've had a very adamant McLaren-Mercedes setup seeming to be the best choice. However, those Ferrari upgrades have shown that they sort of work. We've had double podium finishes for Leclerc now in the last two races, and Sainz still also had a brilliant race in Zandvoort. But you can't fully pull out of the Mercedes teams, as yes, Hamilton had a bad qualifying, so he would have had a better result. So it's hard to see where they would have finished, at least with Hamilton in Zandvoort. Russell looked pretty bad. But in this situation, we're coming to a track where Monza very much is a Ferrari-specific track, purely because Ferrari throw everything they have to try to get something good, as it's the big home Grand Prix. There's Imola as well, but if you win at Monza, it is brilliant. So I know for a fact they'll be trying to fight the McLarens and Red Bulls. So for me right now, McLaren still is the clear top constructor. Red Bull is on its own a very good constructor, but way too expensive. And then it's against Ferrari versus Mercedes. And for now, before the free practice results, I would have to say I am Team Ferrari for this weekend. Not on the long term, but short term for now, I think this is a weekend to have a look at Ferrari. And especially with Ferrari not being picked by a lot of people, it'd be a great differential move. Then I want to talk about Lando Norris and his performance at Zandvoort. So basically, because of the gap being 70 points for Max Verstappen, there is technically a World Drivers' Championship battle going on. It's not really a battle yet. However, in McLaren's eyes, 100%, everything will be going Norris's way. And that really helps Norris to be one of your main drivers you select for your team, as you know for a fact McLaren are going to put him forward. If there is a situation like what happened in Hungary again this season, I am adamant that is too far in now, and the gap between Norris and Piastri is too much, that Piastri would be asked to move out of the way to help Norris in the championship. And what does this mean for Piastri? I think now he's not one of the worst options to pick, but I do think he's sort of a dud premium driver now, because I feel like he's never going to be allowed to be in a situation where he wins another race this season. And you have other drivers that could surprise us, like Russell, Hamilton, Leclerc, Sainz, because they're in different teams, they're allowed to fight Norris, Verstappen. But I think Piastri is sort of done for F1 fantasy terms. I think all he can really manage now is 20 to 30 points on a good weekend. And then finally, on the discussions, I want to talk about Williams, because of course it has just come out that Sargent will be replaced. We have had no official news at how much Logan Sargent's replacement will be. Yes, it will probably be 4.8 million, maybe 4.5. I'm really hoping it's not higher than Logan Sargent, but I'd be surprised with a Williams new rookie driver coming in. They're not going to be expensive. However, I wanted to actually look at Williams and their drivers, and same rule applies for Logan Sargent's replacement, because Albon recovered very well in that race and they showed great promise. Going into Monza, I'm hoping if we see some of the same things, I'm excited to see what they can do. Albon is still a great choice, and same with Sargent, he's still much better choice than both the Saubers. We saw last weekend, Saubers are not the way to go, and that sort of leads on to the first part of the top driver I would pick for under 8 million. You've got to steer clear of the Saubers if you can. Of course, if your team has to have two big premium drivers and you can't afford anything else, fair enough. But the Sauber drivers are the worst drivers to pick. They were worse than Sargent. Sargent still managed to get 0 points last weekend, even with a -5. So he did show a little bit of promise F1 fantasy-wise. Same with Albon. He had a -15, recovered to 2 points only down. It would have been a great weekend for him. It's just a shame he got that 15-point deduction and had to start from the back of the grid. And then talking about the top 3 drivers under 12.5 million, I think going into Monza, it has to be Nico Hülkenberg. He really showed us why we had to pick him. He just did fantastic during Zandvoort, getting plenty of overtakes, a lot of points picked up. He's always been one of my favourite drivers to pick because he's cheap drivers, and he's not that expensive like Kevin Magnussen or Esteban Ocon. So definitely Nico Hülkenberg, you need to be trying to fit him into your team. Then second place, again another Haas driver, Kevin Magnussen, and now I don't think he's as good of a choice as Nico Hülkenberg for now, but by all means he is still a great option. He's very expensive for a cheap driver, this is the issue, but there's a reason for it. He'll always get you consistently 5+ points each weekend. And for me, if you're not building a team with 2 massive premium drivers, he's one of those drivers you get in right now. And then finally, third place still has to be Alex Albon. Like I said, he would have had a blistering weekend. Maybe not as many points because he wouldn't have got so many overtakes starting at the back of the grid compared to 8th. But I do believe that Williams had the pace to be about where Gasly and Hülkenberg were in that entire race. So I do think there were points on the cards, and a lot of F1 Fantasy points for him there. Honourable mentions, of course, also have to go to Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. Mainly Pierre Gasly, he had a brilliant race, but really Esteban Ocon as well, because he didn't do too bad at all as well, considering where he was in qualifying. But these two seem to flip-flop. From whenever someone's having a good race, the other one's having a bad race. So from that sign, maybe get Esteban Ocon in. But in all seriousness, both the Alpine drivers have become really solid cheap drivers. Esteban Ocon a little bit worse because of his price. But if Gasly just doesn't have a DNF and that car does not brake on him, he is another brilliant option. And then now let's talk about the premium drivers. And it has to be the top dog right now, Lando Norris. Yes, we all had our doubts last weekend, and even I was doubting him, thinking maybe we should push away from him. He cost a lot, but he proved us why we need him, getting the fastest lap on the final lap with used hards compared to Lewis Hamilton's new softs. Very impressive, and it does show McLaren have a lot of pace. If they can put that into Monza as well, I'm very adamant for the rest of the season that Lando Norris will become probably the top person in F1 Fantasy you need to bring in. And realistically, he should be in any team combination, the single premium driver and the 2 premium driver builds. Then Verstappen is a no-go. Basically, again, like I said, he's just too expensive for what he gives back to you right now in a single or 2 premium driver build. And then I've made my opinions clear on Piastri. I still think he's a good option, but you shouldn't be 2-timesing him. And if you have him as your second premium driver, you should be fully prepared for McLaren to not give him preferential treatment. And then again, similar to constructors, there is a Ferrari and Mercedes fight going on with the driver assets as well. Now for me, I think Charles Leclerc would be a great differential asset to have in Monza. I think he's probably my second to third favourite premium driver to have going into Monza. However, we've also got Lewis Hamilton, who I really like the look of as well. I do think he had a bad qualifying, and without that, he would have had a much better race. So for me, my top 3 would be Norris, Leclerc, and Hamilton, closely followed behind with Piastri, Russell, and Sainz. And then finally, for this segment of the video, we need to talk about the chips. And again, I say this every weekend, if it isn't a sprint race weekend, then do not touch your chips. Now, there are a few instances that this will change. Again, these are the instances. If there is rain predicted for the race or qualifying, you may want to look into no negative, but it has to be a high chance of rain. And again, with Final Fix, something drastic has to happen. You only use Final Fix if you think it will get you 10 to 15+ points from changing one driver over. And remember, you can only change one driver in your team and not the constructors with final. But anyway, now let's talk about the team selections. So with me, we'll actually start off this team selection section with the differential team, because I also do believe this differential team could become the best team for Monza. I have full faith in this team, and I potentially, with free transfers, could be pushing towards something like this going into this weekend. Now, as you can see, this team would consist of Norris, Leclerc, Hülkenberg, Albon, and Sargent's replacement with McLaren and Ferrari. So it is a huge differential, as we've been pushing Mercedes a lot, but basically it's a similar team in essence. However, you just get rid of that one Mercedes driver and the Mercedes constructor and put in Ferrari assets as well. Now, you do have Carlos Sainz in this team as well if you need to save a little bit of funds, but realistically the main ones you need to have in all of these teams is Norris and McLaren. McLaren are the best constructor, Norris is the best premium driver. But if you want that differential team, those are the premium driver sort of areas you would look. And if you have more money to spend, then you could increase Albon to Magnussen, or do the opposite, or drop Albon down to a Zhou at 6.9 million. Then we have the team that I would say is a 50% differential team, which is where you keep McLaren and Ferrari, because I think, of course, if you're not 2-timesing the second premium driver, the constructors then are the most important. And if you want to go for that big differential, then Ferrari is the main idea. But you could delve delve into multiple different teams and sort of branch out and hope that you get good races from all of them. So you could have a team where you have Norris and Hamilton, so the Mercedes drive, so Norris in a McLaren and Hamilton in a Mercedes, and then McLaren and Ferrari. And the same thing applies if you don't have enough money for this to go for Norris and Russell. And then with the cheap drivers, again, the same thing applies. You could increase Albon to Magnussen or drop Albon down to Zhou, depending on your team value. Then finally, for the 2 premium driver builds, I have a very, very juicy team to show to you guys, and that is the Playing It Safe team. So this would consist of both McLaren drivers, McLaren as a constructor, and Mercedes as another constructor. So we know Mercedes will be good. The issue with Ferrari is coming into this weekend, will they be better than Mercedes at Monza? I still am predicting it, but it's a bit into the unknown. And if you played it safe, this is a brilliant team because you know Piastri will do well in the McLaren. Yes, he won't be able to steal a win or potentially as high up as Norris, but he will get you consistent points. So he's not a bad asset. It's just you won't get that surprises from Piastri anymore that you could from Leclerc, Hamilton, Sainz, Leclerc. But all in all, a great team. And you can do the same thing with the cheap drivers that I've been doing for all of the other teams. That is basically what you have to do with all of them. Again, just to reiterate, Sargent isn't the option. It's his replacement, but his replacement hasn't been put in yet, but it should be a very similar price, if not potentially even lower. And then finally, we have the single premium driver build as well. They're not my favorite, but again, they still score consistently decent results, considering you'll probably have to have a smaller team value if you're using these. And again, it has Norris with Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Albon, Sargent's replacement, and McLaren and Red Bull. But that about wraps up all the team selections for Monza. Again, it's massively going to be between Ferrari versus Mercedes on the constructors, I already know, but I'm very excited for this weekend. And hey, there's a lot of F1 Fantasy stuff to be excited about as well. But anyway, to finish off this video, let's go have a look at my league. So thank you all so much for joining again to the Zach F1 League. We have 874 of you right now. Let's push for 900 before I close it. It's just an incredible achievement from all of us, because last season I think we had about 100 to 150 people in the league, and this season it's just gone astronomical. So thank you all so much for joining, and as always, let's do a top 5 shout out. And first up, we have a new leader of the Zach F1 League. Oh my god, what a weekend Porsche F1 had. 264 points. Congratulations, my dude. Very well deserved, and it seems we've got a massive fight now for the front, with Leapers 1 dropping down to 2nd. Still an okay weekend, but definitely without Norris, it really did affect any teams that did not have Norris. Closely followed behind was Enema Doji in 3rd place, 3,658 points. And in 4th place, we have Colt Viet Flatout on 3,622 points. And then we have Cole F1 returning into the top 5 with 3,589. Congratulations to all of you, and congratulations to everyone in this league. Keep on putting in the good work, and hey, let's keep this league competitive. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all could have got something out of this video for your F1 Fantasy team selections, why you should be picking these drivers, why you should be picking these constructors, and why you should be looking elsewhere at drivers and constructors as well. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I will be live this weekend, but there will be a twist to it, so watch out for that. And I will be having my post-EP2 video out on Friday as well. But thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.